Hey, old school gamers, welcome back to Grumpy Old GMs, where we work to improve your games and to help bring out the inner greatest game master in you. So today's topic is kind of a topic for players or for GMs to help their players with. And that topic relates to things I've seen over the years. Different players have mentioned this kind of thing to me, and it happened lately. I'm not going to name names or anything. And it kind of prompted me to think maybe that should be a video coming up. I have so many ideas for videos coming up that I'm actually afraid that I'm going to forget some of them before I get to them if I don't write them down. But that's how many video ideas we've got here. But today's video, I think, might be a little bit helpful. And that is to kind of mention that people have told me sometimes, and some of this is going to be like, well, duh, John. And maybe this video is like, just don't play with those kind of people, John. Or just make sure that you discuss in the session 0 and set expectations. You know, that might be your comeback. But I still think this needs to be talked about. So the thing is, we play these games for escape. Whether it's D&D or one of the D&D variations like Pathfinder, OSC, OSR, whatever, or whether we're playing Marvel superheroes, DC superheroes, Mutants and Masterminds, Star Wars, Star Trek, Stargate, Shadowrun, Cyberpunk, whatever we're playing. We play these games to escape. We play these games for recreation. We play these games for relaxation. And you as a player are not the only person at the table with that goal. Everybody's trying to relax and have fun and have a good time and stuff like that. And so what a comment that I've heard over the years sometimes is I've had groups or various versions of my personal group that's been going since I was 16 years old and I'm 51, and it followed me through high school and college and through different jobs and moving to different states and cities and stuff. So the composition of the table has changed over the decades. But at various versions of my personal group and also just different groups I've done more short term, there are players who've told me sometimes in private outside the game that they like the game, they're going to keep playing and everything. But one of the things that really impacts their fun in a negative way, makes them have less fun than they could have or should have, is that they have to babysit the other players in universe. Like, their character has to babysit the other characters in universe. I'll give you some examples here. A few years ago, my table was doing a flavor change. We were taking a break from D&D type fantasy. We were doing Star Wars. And there was a player there who wanted to experiment with playing a drug-addicted character. So his character is hopelessly drug-addicted in Star Wars. And of course, with in a sci-fi space opera type universe, there's all kinds of illicit drugs available that do all kinds of weird, crazy things. And so his character would miss combats. His character just would not show up to meetings with NPCs because his character was passed out, strung out, and on the floor of her apartment. In Star Wars, her character had an apartment in a city on a planet in Star Wars. And this was, that character was needed to round out the combat, to be enough people to. Anyway, it was, and the character, the player was like, "Oh, thank you, John. This is so great. I get to explore and role play this." And the rest of the party's like, "Whatever, man." Or there, where other characters, sometimes characters just make what we both, we could just call poor life decisions. Or I'm just gonna, since I'm not naming names, I'm not gonna pull any punches. And I've been doing this for 40 years, so there's no way people necessarily know who I'm talking about. Stupid. I'm going to use the word stupid. People making stupid decisions. And there's other, there are players there that are having to babysit and damage control. Like for instance, characters who, they just decide they're bored and they want to combat, and they just want to combat now. And so they're just going to have a combat with the next thing they see in the game universe. And the next thing they see in the game universe might be an NPC who kind of in the story is intended to help them, maybe give them some exposition, maybe give them some information that they need to solve the next, thing in their storyline. Or maybe that NPC was there to give them something that they need. Or maybe that NPC would have offered to heal them or give them some kind of aid. But before they can even talk to I'm going to roll initiative and kill it. What? And so there have been players that talk the crazy, bloodlusty, murderous player character down so that they can, have normal interactions with the D&D universe. Or that, there have been players that just, they just get too distracted by the, ooh, shiny. Oh, wow, that's over there in the next country on the map. Let's go over there to the next country on the map and see that. Wait a minute, we kind of have a quest here that we're trying to finish, and there's like consequences if we don't finish this quest. And so there's just different ways that some of the more, and here's the funny thing, sometimes there are some crazy people in real life that are my friends. Some of my friends are crazy people. They sit down to play D&D with me, and all of a sudden they wonder, and they've said out loud, I've heard this from many, many people, it's like, how did my character end up being the mature adult in the party? Why do I have to be the moral compass? Or why do I have to be the babysitter? Or why do I have to be the logical one? Or why do I have to be the responsible adult in the party? And so the reason that our picture today is like a mama dragon looking after baby dragons is there are players who feel like this because they're like, I want my character to do some fun things too sometimes. I want my character to let loose and do some silly things too sometimes, but I can't, John. They've told me this many times over the years. I can't because my character is mom. My character is like the party's mom. And, my character is like the party's mom. I'm babysitting these kids and I'm preventing them from destroying themselves. Or I'm preventing them from destroying the world through just negligence and incompetence and stupidity because they're the heroes. They're the ones that the world is depending on to save the world. And if somebody like me wasn't there to be their mom, then they would fumble the ball and the world would explode. Sometimes literally. The world would explode. And so there are players that have told me over the years that it does impact their fun in a negative way because they don't have the freedom to sometimes be goofy, to sometimes be silly, to sometimes have their character just do fantastical, crazy things because they always, every session, all session long, they have to be mom or the logical one or the responsible one or somebody in this group has to be the responsible frickin' adult. And they get kind of bitter and they start to burn out. So what I'm saying here is, don't do that to someone. Okay, don't. I mean, this is probably the harshest I've ever been on this channel so far. But and because I get to not name names and I've had 40 years of experience, I don't have to address anybody in particular. But don't do that to someone. Don't take away somebody else's fun because you're gonna force them to be your mom. Well, they don't have to be my mom. Well, yeah, they do. Because if they don't, sometimes the world will literally explode. Or sometimes if they don't be your mom, then your actions will bring a TPK on the entire frickin' group. And everyone will be dead if somebody isn't your mom. Be your own mom. Be your own responsible adult. I'm not saying that every second of the game has to be serious. I'm not saying that we can't do wild, fun, crazy things sometimes. But give everybody a chance to do some wild, crazy, fun things. So anyway, I guess this is like the closest thing I think I've had maybe to an actual rant on this channel. And I'm approaching 9 minutes, so I'm going to sign off. Okay, I guess today I fulfilled the name Grumpy Old GM. But if you think you benefit from some Grumpy Old GM stuff, there's a Patreon down below where I coach people on the phone or on Discord, or I've got some other GMs that help me out with different topics because the best teacher sometimes is more than one teacher. There's games. We're doing a new Dark Sun game this afternoon. We got an old school Essentials game going tonight. If there's room at our games, look for us. The link's down below at grumpyoldgms.com. We got a schedule, and we are getting ready to launch. I'm actually looking for, if you're a Patreon supporter, get with me. I'm actually reaching out to Patreon supporters on Discord to try to find a time slot for a Patreon supporter exclusive game to help playtest my world. And yes, your name would be in the product for a special thanks when it gets published. So this is Grumpy Old GM signing off here. So I will see you round the gaming table.